December 1st, 2021, fourth night of Hanukkah. Our usual Wednesday night class back in session. We're continuing in the Ben Ish Hai. We're now at the beginning of Perashat Noah, Shana Rishona. So in Perashat Bereshit, we discussed various issues regarding the Tallet and the Sissit, and we're continuing with Hilchot Sissit. So Ben Ish Hai, of course, we know he has his introduction, which we're really not following. We're going straight to the halachot. So halacha aleph. Shelosha minei tallet hem. Ha'echad shel semer rechelim ve'elim. So first he opens up telling us that there are three types of talletot. And he tells us the first one. It's semer rechelim ve'elim or ve'ayalim.
Where are you?
We're on aleph.
Oh, okay.
Shelosha. Okay. So the first one is wool of sheep, whether it's a male sheep or female sheep. ובטלט זה יעשה גם הסיסיות שלו מסמר הנזכר. And when you make the garment, the tallet garment, from this material, from the sheep wool, then also you should make the sissit strings from the same material, from the same wool. וזה הוא החיוב מן התורה לכולי עלמא. And this is the obligation from the Torah, according to all opinions. And the person who wears such a tallet fulfills the positive commandment from the Torah, according to all opinions. What's the second? Tallet shel semer gefen or tallet shel meshi. They have a tallet made from cotton or from silk. When it comes to these materials, there's an argument, a disagreement. There are those that say that these garments are required to wear sissit on them, the oraita, and some say it's the rabbanan. And of course, those that say it's only midrabbanan still can make a beracha on it, obviously. The same way we make berachot on all different types of mizvot that are the rabbanan. ובעניין הסיסיות, אף על גב לדעת מרן ודעמה, יוכל להניח סיסיות של סמר רחלים גם בבגדים של שאר מינים. עם כל זה, אם הטלט הוא של סמר גפן, טוב שיניח בו סיסיות ממין שלו שהוא סמר גפן. So, first of all, if you look in Shulchan Aruch, and you open up Orach Hayim, Siman Tet, Seif Bet, you'll see that according to Maran, that you can put wool sissit strings on any garment. Okay, so now we're talking about a garment that's made out of cotton, for example, over here, or a garment made out of silk. So you have a silk tallet or you have a cotton tallet. According to Shulchan Aruch, you can put wool strings. Okay, he's telling you over here, Tob sheyaniach bo sisiyot min shelo shehu semer gefen. According to the Ben Ish Hai, it'd be better to put on sissit of the same material. So if it's cotton tallet, you put on cotton sisiyot. Ya'an, dildat moreno harab mi'ib mirotenberg, uda'ameh, en potrim sissit shel semer bibchadim shel she'ar minim. Okay, you cannot fulfill your obligation with sissit of another material for in other words, you cannot use the wool strings on the cotton garment or cotton strings on the wool garment and vice versa. And therefore, to alleviate yourself from this dilemma and this argument of the Hachamim, Therefore, always put the strings from the same material that the garment is. Mihu. But everything we're talking about over here applies only to a cotton garment. But now, if your garment, if your tallet is silk, okay, we all recall the silk tallet that everybody wore years ago. It's very difficult to find proper Sissit strings that were made with the intention of the mizvah and made in the proper way, according to all opinions. Because there's an opinion of one of the Gedolim that is mentioned by the Birkei Yosef. We know the Birkei Yosef is a book by the Hida, and the Birkei Yosef, also in Or Hayim, Siman Tayet Sif Qatan Bet, the Meshi Sarish Tiye Zirikato Mshichato Lishma. When you make the silk strings, you have to actually, the way they make silk strings is a method of pulling pulling the silk, pulling it and pushing it back so you could make the string. And you have to do that lishma as well. And that's very difficult because generally you'll go to, let's say, to the manufacturer or wherever you would buy your raw material in this case, and it's already made. So you don't know if it was actually made by somebody lishma, unless you had, a Jewish person who is well qualified in the making of silk strings to do such a thing. So it becomes very difficult to do. Okay, it's a type of weaving process, if you will. And according to all the opinions that you need, it'd be very difficult to find such sisiyot. Even though according to the Trumat edition, you don't need to have this extra, we'll call it step in guaranteeing that the sisiyot are made lishma. But this is where the division and the argument is. And maybe Maran also, tends to side with the same gadol. So since you're most probably not going to find the proper silk strings to put, therefore, to alleviate yourself from any sort of problem, always use wool strings on a silk tallet. So what do we find at the end? Tallet shel meshi. Besides it being only midrabbanan, it's worse to use a silk tallet than it is to use a cotton tallet, because of the problem with the strings putting on it. دهاتام هو اللي بادخل عالمة أبد بإلو هاي كاسبارات بعد عيتور فبعد حداش للسبيرة له دين لباريخ إلا عطليش سمر حليم بحوت كاف سمر. And then there's another opinion that says you should only always make a beracha on a wool tallet with wool strings. So you want to avoid any other tallet, especially the silk he's telling you. أبال عطليش الشعار منيم إن لباريخ So now we dealt with the first one. We said all wool on wool. We dealt with the second one. We talked about the cotton with cotton or cotton with wool, or we talked about the silk with silk, or silk with wool. But according to what the Ben Ish Hai is telling us, he wants us to avoid the silk one as much as possible. And it could be that based upon the Ben Ish Hai and possibly many other sources, that's why we saw a disuse of the silk ones in our lifetimes.
Yeah, that's just,
He's what? Go ahead. Say, wait.
Silk was in the 30s and the 40s and the 50s.
Okay, so
and he's in the
Ben Ish Hai passed away in 1909.
Right.
But his Mark did not become popular in this community. Okay, we're talking about now our community. Let's talk about Sephardim in the United States. It only started hitting these shores in the 50s. Okay. The same way with the Sidurim changed after World War II and started bringing in Sidurim from Eretz Israel, from Baghdadian publishers in Yerushalayim. There's some Baghdadian publishers in Yerushalayim, mainly Salah Yaqub Mansour, was the publisher and distributor for Ben Ish Hai. And those books started coming in together with the rabbis from Israel, and it started making inroads over here. But in the beginning, not much. 50s and 60s, it started. And now by the 70s, that's when we saw the silk Talletot all over the place.
Jacob Kassan had silk, right?
He had a silk Tallet, he had a wool Tallet. You have to understand, somebody in the position of a chief rabbi had numerous Talletot, okay? And they could have used different ones at different times. But as the state of Israel was created, and now you had air travel becoming more common, especially in the 60s, and you started seeing different rabbis and emissaries coming back and forth. They started bringing different ideas with them, different teachings with them, different concepts with them, and they brought these things here. So in the 60s, everybody still had silk Talletot, for the Hamonah. In the 70s is when the bulk of the Talletot, and I remember very well, was still silk. You remember in Shalision, the big bins they used to have?
Yeah.
They used to have the bins in the hallway,
Right.
And then some of them you'd find, the wool Tallet, and it was just this
The
big,
gigantic ones.
they were gigantic with these thick black stripes on them,
Yeah.
and the wool, the wool ones, and the wool looked like it was like really like very rough. Yeah, rough is the right word. Okay, it didn't look, and the silk ones were beautiful, even though they were crumpled and wrinkled, they were still more comfortable to wear. But then you saw by the end of the 70s, they phased out. So that was really the period where influence of something like Ben Ish Hai, I feel, had a very, very large influence on the way halakha played out and what people were wearing.
They were
I think
mainly
so.
the small ones, no? They were the ones that went
What?
around you?
The silk ones,
Yeah,
they were smaller.
they were smaller, right?
They were
weren't
small,
as
but they had big ones too.
They had big ones too.
They had big ones too.
But Joe, the silk ones used to be like a scarf. It never covered your back. Imagine how,
Had both.
No, they had both. They had both. Absolutely. In fact, here, I bring one out right now.
Didn't we have a class on this before?
Oh, we touched upon it.
Yeah. Neat.
It's dark.
Hmm?
It's dark.
Oh, ew.
So as far as class on it before, we talked about Talletot before, but now we're going to go through all of Ben Ish Hai, God willing, from beginning to end. And by doing that, we'll be able to see everything that he said, and we could see also the different opinions.
Yeah.
Look, this is far from small.
right. That's big, right?
This
Okay.
is a nice, big, beautiful silk Tallet. All right,
What kind of Sissit is on it?
Silk
this is definitely silk.
Oh, wow.
all around.
This is all silk.
That's a collector's item.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but this is silk.
Is it kosher?
Oh, yeah.
I still have mine from my bar mitzvah. From my grandmother gave me that one, like that, Joe.
Not this big, Karen, right?
Not that big. No, not that big.
It's a big,
Not that
beautiful.
big.
We're gonna let Rabbi Mark say to check out this Sissit over here. Check it out, Mark. Look at the beautiful
Go
silk.
to I have to move the camera.
Look.
Oh, which knotting did they use? According to who?
Yeah, according to our minhag.
Oh, wow.
It's knotted according to
Very
our
fine.
minhag.
Stick it in the camera.
It's hard to count though.
Very hard to
Yeah.
count.
It's tiny.
We're blind.
That's why I was asking.
Very
if it's kosher.
Very thin. It's fine silk. Hey, let's see if we can show it on the camera. Give me 1 second, Mark. You hold that end.
Very nice.
I don't know how well you can see it or not. If you see you could see the knotting on it.
So Joe, you would still
Yeah.
wear that tallet if need be?
Absolutely. Why not?
Okay, fine.
It's 100% kasher
It's amazing.
and it's in great condition. The sisiyot are silk, as the material is silk.
I wonder if Ashkenazim won this at all. Just only Sephardim.
They only had the
No,
scarf ones, the Ashkenazi.
The
Yeah,
concern,
most of the Sephardim also only had, but obviously,
Most of the Sephardics, the
Most.
Turks always had the ones like a scarf, like they used to put it around their neck. They never wore it open. They always wore it around their neck. All the Turks did that. That's from
But-
my days,
but
you know, my grandfather's days and everything. That's the
Gary.
Turkish.
Harry,
Yes.
not only the Turks, everybody wore it as what you want to call a scarf.
Mhm.
Okay, but those who were aware of the halacha did atifa first, as we discussed in older classes, where you actually wrapped yourself in it before you ended up wearing it as a scarf.
Correct.
We have pictures from Turkey, from Syria, from Egypt, from Lebanon, from all over the place where they wore a tallit scarf style, if you will. Okay,
Mhm.
and if they didn't wear it scarf style, at the very least, they wore it just like draped over, their shoulders and part of their back, but not hanging out the front.
No.
Okay, well,
That's not handmade,
Yeah,
right?
makes sense.
can you? Of course you can, but I don't think that's handmade. But you feel the silk quality. It's very fine.
Nice that I see
I
those
think
guys.
it's hashub, by the way.
It is hashub.
Yeah,
Very hashub.
So
it's even nicer.
in
than regular
Italy,
wool.
if I'm in Italy right now, they're making such talletot. Yeah.
Can we get it with the fillet?
Oh, I want to get one.
You'd have to actually dye what do you call it, the silk yourself.
Okay, no, I'm sure.
We can look into it.
We could probably call the active. Should
We're
they
gonna
have
even do it involved.
some?
All right, let's continue. You show and tell is always fun. Okay. והשלישי הוא טלט ששיטי שלו סמר רחלים והערב שלו מין אחר או להפך, וזה גרוע ביותר. So this is a talet that is partial wool and partial another material. Okay, and he says this is the worst type of talet. للدعت مولين هرب من روتنبرغ الدعامية and تقنا للطليل زي مساد حوتين. There's no way to put on proper strings on such a talet. ורק לדעת מרן יש לו תקנה. And only according to Maran can you fix this by putting on حوتين של סמר רחלים, putting on wool strings. וכן צריך לעשות. And this is what you have to do. ולכן ראוי לכו ירושלים להיזהר בין בטלית גדול, בין בטלית קטן, ללבוש של סמר רחלים. So right away, he concludes the halacha and says anybody who's Yirei Shamayim has to be careful, and whether you're wearing your talit gadol or talit katan, it must be wool. And also the strings have to be wool. And by doing so, you find that you fulfill the obligation according to the Torah. And you fulfill the obligation of the Sissit strings according to all opinions without any question whatsoever. Okay, so that was the first halacha in the Ben Ish Hai of Perashat Noah, second year. Now, based upon us looking at Chacham Yosef, and if he has any comments to make on this, we would expect that he would have some sort of comment, but for the most part, keep in mind that the Beit Yosef Hashkaha that comes from Israel for Talletot and for Sisiyot and things like that, you generally only find it on wool and wool, nothing else. So I'm just going to look quickly over here. According to Chama Yosef, if you're wearing a cotton tallet, you still have to put wool strings. Basically following the order of Shulchan Aruch in that sense. And Chama Yosef also is of the opinion that you should always have handmade Sissit strings. Okay, and then Chama Yosef concludes, when we said over here, the Ben Ish Chai said, Chama Yosef tells you that even in the hot summer months, okay, a person should make the extra effort to wear even the Tallet Katan out of wool. Okay, and only somebody who cannot tolerate it, okay, he should not give up on the mizvah, but rather he could wear a Tallet Katan made out of cotton. But otherwise, everybody has to wear wool at all times. So, once again, yeah, Chama Yosef, for the most part, agrees with everything the Ben Ish Chai said. And so, we have the Ben Ish Chai knocking out the silk tallet, and we have basically Chama Yosef knocking out silk tallet by agreeing more or less, and by only nowadays giving hashgaha, if you will, and promoting wool tallet gadol and tallet katan. Okay, next halacha. Any questions on this one, or we're good? All right. Bet. Yesh mine begadim shekorin otam karman. Okay, it's called, there's a type of garment called Karman. And it's called Karman because this garment originates in the city of Karamansha in Iran. Ve'od ma shekorin otam shel Kashmir. Okay, meaning that it comes from the city of Kashmir. Kashmir being what was India, now Pakistan. והם נעשים מסמר עזים הנקרא בלשון הקודש נוסה של עזים. And this is made not from sheep wool, but rather from goat wool. הנה אלו דינם כמו שאר מינים. So the law of these are like other things. Shehem, and what are the other things? Like we said before, simir, gefen, cotton, or meshi, okay, or a silk, or cannabis. Okay. No, not canvas. Cannabis, hemp. Hemp. Okay. כי בכל התורה אינו נקרא סמר בסתם אלא רק סמר יחידים. Anytime the Torah talks about סמר in the Torah automatically refers to lamb's wool. Okay, lamb or ram. Okay. שהם הנקבות או סמר עדים שהם הזכרים. אבל של עזים נקרא נוסה של עזים. ולכן ירושלים יעשה חקירה בטלטות שקונה, שיש נדעים של סמר יחדים ועדים, אף באמת הם סמר גמלים או של עזים. Because you have to make sure when you buy tallet what type of wool it's made out of, and if it's actually lamb's wool, sheep's wool, okay, and make sure it's not camel wool or goat wool. ויש השתה סמר והערב מן האחר, דאלו גרים תפק המולעל, and maybe you'll buy a mixed type of wool. Okay, and it's not a wool blend, if you will, and it's really not the proper thing to be using for a tallet. Gimel.
Is that where the word cashmere comes from?
What?
Cashmere wool?
Yeah. It came from Kashmir, the city. That's where it came from. Mm-hmm.
And today cashmere wool is
Still from there.
what animal?
Take a look. I would have to, at least from what he's telling us, it's goat.
Cashmere.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Gimel. Bered shel or patur lechule alma. If you have a leather garment is patur. It's exempt from Sissit because it is not considered a garment to be obligated in Sissit. The only garment that could be obligated in Sissit has to be a material that is actually woven, he tells you. It's woven. Rabbi Yosef adds that if you have the tallet, the garment itself is material, and the corners are leather, then it still requires to have a sissit. Okay, so let's say you made a tallet, just a wool tallet, but you made the corners out of leather, you would still be obligated to put the sissit. Okay, but if and if it's mixed wool and leather, but the majority of the garment is wool, then you would still be obligated to put on sissit. Okay, next. Halacha dalet. Houtin shel pishtim. You have flax, in other words, linen. Okay, linen strings. Af'al gab de potrin bebeged shel she'ar minim. Asur letlotan bebeged semer mishum kel'ayim. Okay, so now if you wanted to put on linen sissit strings on your wool tallet, you cannot do it, obviously, because you have kel'ayim, you have sha'atnez. דלא התירה תורה כלאיים בסיסית, אלא היכא דאיכא תכלת. ובזמן הזה לא תכלת. Now, this is interesting for us. The Torah does not allow us to do כלאיים, this mixture of what do you call it, of linen and wool, unless the sisit strings have techelet. And since he tells you, ובזמן הזה לית techelet, and nowadays we do not have techelet, it wouldn't apply. But now we have techelet now. What would he say? First of all, would he accept our techelet? Okay. And if that's the case, how would it rock the world of halacha? Now, no, see, Rabbi Yosef unfortunately never dealt, as far as I know, with the techelet issue. He avoided it. I don't know.
He said here that the
What?
Rov of the poskim, they weren't no hay.
What are we reading? I'm sorry.
I'm just seeing people saying.
Okay, you're reading Al Kusa.
I
Somebody.
saw it before.
It was Robert Postin, it wasn't discovered.
Right. So now, somebody told me that they spoke to Rabbi Yosef about it one time, about techelet. And I don't want to mention the person because I don't know if he really spoke to him or not, or how correct his information is. But it makes sense that they approached Rabbi Yosef with the question about techelet in general. And he said, I don't want to deal with it. I want to stay away from it. And they told him, what do you mean? It's an important thing. You bring back techelet. He goes, if I sanction it, the techelet that's out there today, everybody's going to feel, even if I don't push it, I just say it's okay. He goes, I know what's going to happen. Everybody's going to run to get it. It's going to create a demand. It's going to create a lot of people making fake techelet. It's going to change the pricing of it. It's going to make people feel that their tallet that they're wearing is no good, and they're people that don't have the money that they must spend for other things for themselves or for their families are going to feel obligated to go get this. It's going to be too much of a problem. So until there is a plethora could be
all that happened anyway.
why?
No, not the Tallet.
Not at
The
all.
Everyone in town has techelet on their thing.
Where? Not here.
Absolutely not.
Not here.
Okay, because whatever. There's some. I guess that the right wing have said that which is weird, because if you have the possibility of performing a mitzvah deoraita and you don't, it just seems unusual. But the some authorities said, look, it's showing off. And, that was one argument. I didn't buy that. You have the possibility of fulfilling a Torah mitzvah. Why would you not try and do that? And have you ever seen the presentation from these guys? It's really impressive.
So I don't need to be convinced of Techelet. I've been wearing Techelet before anybody I know. How about that? No, seriously.
I'm not. I don't doubt you, but you
No.
can't.
I'm going to be honest with you. I was always interested in Techelet, and forgot what year it was. I'm going to go inside now and get the book.
It was in the
Yeah.
80s. I mean, 80s, 90s that they found
Yeah,
this.
but I want to. Okay, so anyway, Chief Rabbi Herzog, alav shalom, okay, who was chief rabbi in Israel, he did his own research and study on it. He had doctorates in different sciences, and he already studied different snails and different sea life to try to figure out what Techelet was. And when they first really conclusively discovered Techelet, they used Rabbi Herzog's work, to get to a lot of the details that they needed, and they published it. And I read that, and I immediately realized, the truth in what Techelet is, and how we really need to make the effort to wear the Techelet, and there shouldn't be any doubt. And even if there is a doubt, and even if there is, it's fake, it still does not diminish from the mitzvah, and we can still fulfill our obligation, even if the color that we're using is not the exact color and the dye is not the exact dye. So I wouldn't be doing any harm, and I wouldn't be making a berachah b'tallah. And I saw that the evidence, at least to the best of my ability, was more than conclusive to go ahead and do it. And I started doing it. And beginning, people looked at me, and I just didn't even answer them, because I couldn't sit and, recite an entire doctoral dissertation of Rabbi Herzog to them. I said, there's a Techelet that's not really commonly found nowadays, so just wait, then you'll figure it out later on. For some reason, though, the rabbis really never jumped into it.
I mean, here they are. I mean, some are. It depends on which camp you're in. But when I went to the Makom Techelet museum. We snorkeled, found these snails. They explained to us the entire story, why it was originally purple and how it turned to blue when it needed the sunlight, almost accidentally. Whatever. I don't want to take away from the class, but
No,
it's
you're not
pretty.
taking away from the class. You're not taking away from the class
Pretty
at all.
clear.
Well,
Anyway.
when you first extract that liquid from these snails, it's what do you call it? It's a pale yellow. It's
Right, but then, but when they put it, but when you do the chemical reaction with cotton, okay, they have these cotton. It's pretty cool. You get these things. They have the pellets. You put it in with cotton, and it turns, so without sunlight, it turns purple. Except that the Gemara tells you that the color is blue.
Right.
So what happened? They were pretty sure that this Techelet snail was the one responsible, because they found mountains of shells in Tyre and all over the entire Middle East.
Yes.
And then they so whatever, this guy keeps trying the formula, and he leaves it outside, and he goes to the tesh, and he comes back, and he had left the container outside, and the missing formulation was sunlight. And when sunlight interacted with the Techelet dye, it went from purple to this blue that we now wear on, which was the missing piece of the whole chemical formulation. Anyway, I don't want to take away from where we are, but you're
not taking away. It applies to what we're reading. So yeah.
What year was that?
What?
It's in the 80s or 90s. I can't remember, but they actually came to Hollywood also. They came a couple of times, and we went. It's late 80s, 90s, something like that.
That's permitted.
Yeah. So, the Petil Techelet organization, is ready and willing to go anywhere in the world to demonstrate all this information. And unfortunately, there is a lot of resistance to it in our community, especially from the main community rabbis. Even people that you might think that are not extreme have put up a lot of roadblocks for them. and they have a very, very difficult time getting into our synagogues, into making presentations, into making the sales pitch. I don't know why, but so here in New York, I would say less than 10% of our community wears techelet, in my opinion. I don't
It's
think,
impressive to see. I mean, if you go to Israel, it's all over. It's like really all over. They have stores all over the place. People have them. There is a like you were mentioning before, a copycat, which you can totally see the difference in the color, and it's but the other one's pretty. It's amazing. It doesn't wash off. Nothing. You know, it's great.
Let me clarify what you're talking about. So first of all, there are various copycats, but there was also something that existed prior to the techelet that we are now wearing, and that's the Radziner Hasidim, wear a different type of techelet, and that techelet comes from a cuttlefish. It's very, very different. It has a different color to it. Scientifically, it's been proven to not be techelet or even remotely related to what techelet should be. But the Radziner Hasidim, that's what they wear. So, and that's very easy to obtain as well. So that may be a lot of what you're seeing in store windows, as you refer to in Israel. To actually get real techelet, it's very hard to get so much of it that you're telling me so many, people are wearing it and so many stores have it. I have a difficult time with that. So I think a lot of what you're seeing, Jason, at least in my opinion, is fake.
No. The ones that I see here, because you can tell the fake. The fake is like this intense blue, which is, it fades even when you wash it. Because I purchased the fake one time, and I was like, this is not it, and I changed the strings. And the Makom Techelet place has stores throughout Israel. It's not just on Ben Yehuda Street where they have their, they've got several places all over. They've got a museum. They've got a bunch of different stuff where they, and you actually could you can actually dye it yourself while you're there, which is pretty impressive.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't fade.
Right. So the Machon Petit Techelet is the only one that makes real techelet, and their actual base is in the middle of the desert. Okay, that's where they have themselves established, where they have Dead Sea area. Yeah, it's like off a beaten path. It's like really in the middle of nowhere, and that's where they do all their research and all the all their experimentation and so many things like that. You need to really make an appointment to go there, and it's only like one by one. You can't really go with groups over there either. They have a second place, which is not far from where this is the one that's by the sea, which is it's not far from Caesarea. I don't remember because we were driven by a bus, I don't remember, but it was like a 15-20 minute drive from Caesarea. Mm-hmm. And there they have a little bit of a museum, and you can kind of you can find the snails in the water right there. Cool. Very interesting.
It's a good destination trip if you're going to Israel in the summertime and you have kids. It's a great splashy, still Tanakh like connected trip.
Nice, very nice. All right, so let's go back now to what we were reading. So obviously the Ben Ish Chai was not privy to Techelet. Chacham Yosef and sons do not deal with the Techelet issue. So this leaves it up in the air for us to what to do in such a case. Okay, so if the halakha, according to what he's telling us, does not stop us to wear Techelet strings with techelet, or rather, we'll call it techelet wool strings with a linen garment, or a or linen techelet strings with a wool garment, or vice versa, then it would be fine. But now the question is, my quite personal question, Does it refer to the one string that has the techelet on it or to all the strings? Anyway, מיהו? יש אומרים אין לתלות חוטא פשטים אפילו בבגד של שאר מינים שאינן סמל, מפני שיש סמל שנראית כעין משי, ויבוא להטיל סיסית פשטים בבגד של סמל שיסברו שהוא משי, והכי נהוג, שלא להטיל חוטין של פשטים בשאר מינים שאינם סמל. Because rather, there are those that say they should not hang linen strings even on a garment of another material that is not wool, because there is a type of wool that appears to be like silk, and you may end up putting these, linen strings on the wool garment, and they will think that that wool garment is really, no, they will think that the wool garment is a silk garment, and it'll be okay, and then they'll end up doing the vice versa afterwards and be a mess. And so therefore the custom is not to put any sort of linen strings on any tallet at any time whatsoever. And Rabbi Yosef doesn't seem to argue with anything in this halakha dalet. Then we'll go on. What?
I can't see a practicality wise, linen tzitziot would be a disaster. Like anytime you have a shirt that's linen shirt, it's wrinkled, it's scrunched. I don't know how you could possibly have a tallet and have it be practical.
Press it.
Mark, he says press it. You're not going to press it every day, though.
No, you can have a room you walk into before you get into the store.
Mhm. Anyway, here, אין ללבוש טלית פשטן, אף על פי שהוא מטיל בו חוטין של פשטן. אוקיי, משום גזירה. ורק בשעת הדחק, דאין לו בגד אחר כי אם של פשטן, יטיל בו חוטין של פשטן דווקא ולא מן אחר, ויטיל לו בזה בשעת הדחק דווקא, דאין לו טלית אחר. So do not wear a linen tallit, even if you're putting linen sissit on it, because it's a gezerah, and only if you are pressed and you have no other tallit whatsoever, this is your only tallit that you could get, then that's what you do, and try to avoid it. Whatever. Next.
ממש גזירה?
That's just saying, mishum gezerah. He's telling mishum gezerah. I don't know. Let's see. Maybe it was the black book that I bring out. No, this book over here, maybe. I'll find something. Yeah, hold on 1 second. If you're asking about Mash Gezerah, let's see if we can be in here.
Oh, yeah, but in Torah, there's only 2 bigadim, של סמר, כבשים, הם פשטים. in Torah,
משום גזירה, דאז יהיה מוכרח לעשות בו סיסית של פשטן, ויש לחוש שמא יעשה בו גם כן תכלת, והווה איסור כלאיים כשיתכסה בו בלילה, שאז אין זמן קיום המזווה, ואז בזמננו אין תכלת, סיבירה לה, והוא במקום אין הגזירה בטלה. I don't see what the connection is here whatsoever. So from what I'm understanding over here, it's based upon Masechet Menachot, that if you have this pishtan beged, and you end up making pishtan, still makes no sense. You end up making pishtan sisiyot on it. Now that you have pishtan sisiyot, you may end up making the sisiyot out of techelet, but they didn't have techelet. And then now that you have this techelet, pishtan sisiyot, you're going to hang it onto a wool garment. Far-fetched. Yeah. Yeah, they're not a real. Okay. Vav. Tallet. She'en la 4 כנפות. Okay. Petura min sissit. Simple enough. You have a garment. It may look like a tallet, but doesn't have 4 corners. It is automatically exempt from sissit. ואם היא בעלת 5 כנפות או יותר, חייבת. But if it has 5 or more corners, it is obligated. אך לא יטיל סיסית לכל כנפותיה. But you do not put sisit on all the corners. כי אם יטיל ל4 כנפות בבעל, but put it only on 4 corners. ויזהה להניח החוטין ב4 כנפות המרוחקות זו מזו. Put it on the 4 corners that are furthest from one another. כי המרוחקות נופל עליהם שם כנפות תפח. Because those that are furthest from each other, those are what are called corners, the edges, the ends of the tallet. ואם עבר והטיל יותר מן 4 כנפות, עבר על בל תוסיף כשל בשם. But if you put a seat on more than 4 corners of this garment, you have transgressed the ruling of bal tosif, okay, of not doing more when you wear it. ומכל מקום, and in any case, יזהה להתרחק מטלט כזו. You should always avoid such a tallet. ולא ילבש טלט שיש לה יותר מ4 כנפות, אף על פי שמטיל חוטין ב4 בלבד. And you should avoid any tallet that has more than 4 corners, even though you're only putting סיסית on 4 corners. מפני שיש חולקין ופוטרין טלט כזו מן הסיסית. וכן נזכר הפוסקים. Why? Because there are some hachamim that say such a garment is completely exempt from Sissit, and therefore you run into a problem, and this is discussed in the poskim. Mark, look, you were going to say something.
No.
No, we're good? It is straightforward, but I thought you were going to say. הלכה זין, כנפות הטלט, שהם קרנות שמטילים בהם סיסית, צריך להיות מרובעים דווקא ולא עגולים, שאין עיגול נקרא כנף, וצריך לדקדק בזה בטלט קטן מכוח שעושים בהם תפירה, ובנקל יהיו נראים עגולים מכוח התפירה. The bottom line is a corner must be squared off. It cannot be rounded off. If it's rounded off, it's not called a kanaf, and only a squared off corner can be, can be considered a corner, and that's where you have to have your sisit on the garment. Height. In nikra' talleto. So now your tallet rips. What do you do? In nikra' talleto, yizahir letofro tikif. You have to be careful to immediately sew it. Shelo yebat shesh kanafot. Right? So because if it's ripped, now it has 6 corners. So you have to immediately sew it. The ikama de amar pitura min as-sisit. Because if it's more than 4, there are those that say it's exempt from sisit. Like I wrote above. And if the majority of it is ripped and he comes to sew it, you have to remove the sisit first. And then you go and you retie them on after you sew the garment. This is the opinion of the Aharonim. והטעם משום תעשה ולא מן העשוי. הליבה דמן דאמר פיטורה ואף. Okay, so now, if you had a garment, okay, imagine, give me this tallet over here 1 second more. Or give me this napkin, it's better. So let's say now, this is your tallet, and you have your 4 corners. Now, it ripped. Now it has 6 corners, right? But the original 4, plus we have these 2 more.
Unless they're ripped in the middle.
Okay, but that's what we're talking about over here. Because that's what we're talking about. Now you have 6. And you're coming to repair it, and you have sisit still hanging on these. According to the opinion that this garment is now exempt of sisit, and now you already have strings hanging on it, okay? Then it's as if you're creating something from something that was already there, and you can't do that. So therefore, you must remove all the strings first, sew this up so it becomes one complete garment again, and now you have a garment that is obligated in sisit, and then you have to put the sisit on it. It's basically like you have you have a sukkah, okay? You put up your walls and you put up your sechach, and now all of a sudden your walls all fall down. Okay, you now have to. You can't put on You have to remove the shechach, to put up the walls, put the shechach back on. Okay? And even though we don't follow that, and even though Maran rules that even a ripped garment like this, you still can wear and you should wear with the Sissit in the four corners, even though we have to take the other opinions into consideration. And this happens commonly with a Tallet Gadol, he tells you. They take two things, two pieces, and they sew them together. And after a while, this Tallet that was made from two pieces of material that they basically sew together, the stitching comes apart, and that's how it rips. So we think of today that we just go and buy a Tallet. Back then, they used to take different pieces of material and sew it together to make. Like you see sometimes, you'll find every once in a while, Ashkenazim, you'll see like we have on the top of the Tallet, we have like that border. You'll see sometimes they'll have a border with something smack in the middle, because as they grew up, they added another piece of material to make a larger Tallet. They put that piece in the middle over there.
That's a group. They don't wear as kids.
Hmm?
They don't wear as kids.
There are some Ashkenazim that wear it when they're younger. I didn't say kids.
No, but they get a Tallet when they get married. They don't want to give up the Tallet, and they keep it.
Once they're married, they're not growing out of it.
So, nowadays you don't
No,
see
but it's
it.
a 60-year-old guy or something, and he's gone through life. It's ripped a few times.
Yeah, and they just keep, and they add that border in the middle of it on top of where they join the pieces of material together. I've definitely seen it. Yeah, those Tallets already yellowish, Yeah, well, we've seen, but everything. In other words, life wasn't disposable like today. Everything had to be used and reused and reused and preserved and and added to and cherished. Nowadays, we live in a disposable society.
Sure.
Very, very different.
All right, that's just like the dream. Like they get a little bit used. Okay, it needs. They send it to the schools and
Yeah,
they find new ones.
dumped. Everything is dumped.
Dump it up.
Okay, I want to see if there was something on this that we had to talk about. Okay. No, okay, we'll go with that. Next halacha. Halacha طيط. סודר. שעונים על הסבר. אף על פי שיש לו 4 כנפות, ויש בו שיעור סיסית פטור. If you have a scarf, okay, that's something that you generally wear around your neck, okay, and it has 4 corners, and it may even have the appropriate size for putting סיסית. It's still פטור. It's exempt. וכן הוא הדין המלבושים, כגון גלימה וחיוסי שיש להם 2 כנפות למעלה, סמוך לסבר, ו2 כנפות למטה, פטורים. Let's say you're wearing a type of robe, a type of cloak, where it has 2 corners up here on top, okay, and the whole thing is just one big garment, and there's just 2 corners on the bottom. That's also patur, okay. Even though it has 4 corners, it's not considered a Tallet. سبب الشيخ هو المطة بتورين وميكون مقوم يرى الشمايم يزهر العصوت كيرن أحد من عقولها. But in any case, يرى الشمايم, a God-fearing person, should try to round off at least one of the corners. As بزي يبطول لكل عامة. Therefore, it's exempt according to all opinions. فعل بي شلون أجوها علم نحوش الزين. Even though the minhag of the world is not to be concerned with such a thing, هم محمير تابوع على برخاء. Remember we discussed that concept. محمير تابوع على برخاء. وعين أحرونيم يعني إن شاء. So, in other words, again, here's something you don't have to do it. The entire world doesn't do it, but you want to be محمير تابوع على برخاء. In other words, it's all very nice and well.
You see that, Joey? You see that in the black coats that the Hasidim wear. Some of them have a rounded corner in the back.
I really never looked. I'm
Yeah,
still, I'm
he
still,
doesn't see that.
I know, you know what it is? I'm still trying to understand why they wear those, what they call frock coats. Why do they wear them?
Do they wear them on King's Highway? That's the question.
Hmm?
The frock coats.
You know what?
The
What
Becker shit?
Who?
The long coats?
Yeah, every rabbi that comes from Israel, they wear these coats, that go down to the ground.
Oh, like the Becker shit.
Bekashem, they call them frock coats when I hear.
Because they're all Rosh Yeshiva. That's what
I don't understand it. What's the point? Just want to see.
status. It's like the Kitoni Kasi.
What status? Status of what?
Rosh Yeshiva. They've already said he has one.
They all have them.
Yeah,
They
but it's
all
like
have
Rosh-
them.
Rosh Yeshiva, I don't know.
Not only Rosh, they all have them. Okay. הלכה מזווה מן המבחר לעשות חוטי הסיסית שזורים משמונה חוטים שיהיו כל חוט משמונה כפול לשמונה. שיהיו כל החוטים של 4 כנפות 256 חוטים הם לכנפי החיות. All right. וחשב הדבר לעשות כן כמו שכתב שיעורי ברכה זה בשם אחד קדוש. עיין שם. So he's telling you mizvah min hamubhar, the choicest way of doing the mizvah. When you make the sissit strings, each string of the sissit has to be made from 8 strands. You follow me?
Mm-hmm.
The string is not just one piece. String is made from 8 strands, is what he wants you to make. Woven together, tied together, twisted together rather. Okay, shiyu kol hut mishimona kaful shmona. So now you have, this is made from 8. Now you have 8, we have 8 strings. Okay, you have 8 times 8 is 64. Okay, and 64, and we have 4 and 4. Okay, 64, 128, 128 brings you to 256. 256, this number is a remes to the Kanfeh Hayot. Okay, I'm not laughing at it. I'm just laughing at how much thought goes into this. The wings of the Hayot. Hayot is a type of angel. Okay.
Why? How does it? What is it?
Put on furniture, an angel.
I don't know. I don't know exactly because and it's a kasher thing to do this. כמו שכתב בשיעורי ברכה. עיין שם. בספר לב חיים הביא כמה ספרים דחד בוקן. And Leb Hayim brings a number of sources that write this. Leb Hayim is one of the books of the Bihayim Palachi. And the Shiurei Beracha, he talks about this of the Hida. Therefore, every person should try to do this lechatehillah. ונראה לי בסיעתא דשמיא לעשות הרמז בזה במספר מובחר. Because I like to make a hint to this with the word mubhar. Mubhar, the numerical value is 256. כלומר, דבר זה הוא מזווה מן המובחר. Telling you this is מזווה מן המובחר, וזהו שאמר, רונו ליעקב שמחה, וידעו שצריך להעביר 4 כנפות אלו שהם רונו, רש נון וו. Okay? על גבי עיניו בשעת קריאת שמע. You have to take all 256 of these strands, okay, and hold them against your eyes when you're saying the Shema, okay, and then you have the otiyot of ayin, the eye, okay, comes out to 130, but if you add it up the way he wants to add it, like the ayin is ayin and yod and nun, okay, so that comes out to 130, right, and yod and vav and dalet is another 20, so now we're 150, and nun is noon and vav and noon, that's plus 106, that brings us again to 256. Okay, רמז חוטין אלו שהם רונו יועידו לעין שהיא מספר רונו. Okay, it's corresponding to your ayin, which is רונו. ונמצא כל כנף הוא 64 חוטין כמניין נוגה. And now each corner is 64, and 64 is the amount for noga. And we're correcting with this Bekilipa, which is this
Gotcha.
you know, a
But we
kilipa.
only use two strings when we have two things anyway.
I
We use all
understand.
four.
I understand. I'm telling you what the British High is telling us, though. All this is the whole siman over here is according to Kabbalah. Okay, so we have this extraneous shell, if you will. Okay, and therefore we're able to push away this, what do you call it, this garment of flesh. And this flesh gets replaced with or being skin, light rather. So you're swinging from or with the ayin to or with the alif. Okay, ma'arba with a not, shehem kenig arba kenafur. So until now, people wanted to see where Benish High brings in Kabbalah. Here, through in the middle of the halacha. No, it's not a joke. This is a recurring theme that you'll find throughout the Benish High, that in the middle of halachot, he'll emphasize certain points and the importance of doing things a certain way because of Kabbalistic notions that he, decides to share with the everyday man.
What does
On this
Hogan
one.
say on it?
I'm going to look now. What?
He says mitzvah mina muharda. He's
Right.
keeping it like, a pikabala mina muharda.
Yes, he's telling you
Yeah, he's
that.
not saying that it's hayav.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. Baruch.
Man,
Right, he's telling you Mizvah and Haruch.
and he's not telling you that. All my point is not telling us that. Oh, you don't have it this way, or you're not doing mitzvah.
No, he's not saying that whatsoever.
Right.
So the question is, does Chacham Yosef say anything about this?
I'd say he doesn't.
I'm looking at this. I have a very big version. What is that?
Doesn't seem like he does. He's going to touch upon. No, he himself doesn't seem to touch upon it at all. I think he just. I should pull out the. Maybe over there he has something.
The boys on here? Just part of this.
Well, we don't necessarily.
Hold on. Nothing, not a word. He doesn't get into it at all.
I found where he mentions Tallet.
Okay. Tell us.
מה שמצאו כיום שנותנים תחלת בסיסיות, הנה אין הדבר ברור באופן החלטי שזהו התחלת האמיתי.
Okay, but now before you continue, do we know when he wrote that?
I don't know.
Okay.
Just ילקוט יוסף בחוק סיסית עמוד קנ"ז. So, and
Wait, what's the translation to that?
That you find today, the Tallet on the Sissit, this is not clear that it's not decisive 100% that it's the true Tallet. ולכן לא ראינו הרבה מגדולי הדור שנהגו בזה. And therefore we don't see that many of the great Chachamim and the generations are accustomed to do this. והנכון הוא שכל אחד ינהג כפי מנהג גדולי הדור ומנהג רבותיו. He says the proper thing to do is everybody should follow according to the custom of the leaders of the great rabbis of the generation, and the minhag, the custom of their rabbis.
So he's giving you an out for a future generation if they find it conclusive, I guess.
So you said Yilkut Yosef. Okay, what was the reference? Well, it's not in Kuf Nun Zayin here, not in Kuf Nun Zayin here. I'm just
I need a
saying.
screenshot. Yeah.
You know, the point is which version of the
Yeah, I don't know.
Kuf Nun Zayin. That's part of the
I
problem.
say it's screenshot. So.
All right. Let's continue. All right.
And this is only an app. So. PDF. But.
No, I'm sure it does. But there have been so many editions and versions, especially the first volume of Yehud Yosef. So who knows? All right. Halakha Yod Aleph. يزهي لعصود جوف التليت بحوتين של הסיסיות הכל לבן. בין בטלית גדול, בין בטלית קטן. רמז לדבר והיה העטופים ללבן. הטלטות שיש בהם 7 מסדדים לנוי, לא אכפת. כי ה7 הוא מעט מן המעט בגוף הטלט, ורובו לבן. So he's telling you have to be careful to make the entire tallit and the strings of the Sissit strings, everything should be completely white. Okay, whether you're talking about tallit gadol, whether you're talking about tallit katan. Okay, and it goes until they thought they have some sort of coloring on the sides for decoration. No matter, because the seba, the color is just a very, very small percentage part of the tallit, but as long as the majority is white, that's what counts. Another thing that we saw, you see this tallit over here is not all white, it's white with blue.
We have
Blue
some
and
that's
white.
all black and case.
Yeah, that's weird. I've seen that.
You know who it
You
is.
see more colored ones today.
Yeah, but growing up, other than Rabbi Kassin, nobody had all white. Okay, and then again, the white started coming through, and nowadays almost everybody wears almost exclusively white. Yeah, and then you think you see more colored ones today. So those people that want to get fancy, and they go to Israel and they find some $300, tallit someplace, they'll go and buy it. But for the most part,
All white.
it's all white, and especially in the Syrian community is known, for wearing all white tallitot and pia Kabbalah.
Oh, I thought Ashkenazim want to wear black and we wear white.
No, see that.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, that outside of the Syrian community, you find Sephardim wearing white, black, blue. The Syrian community is here, especially, is known for white tallit.
But it's only recent or it's always?
I'm telling you, it used to be only Rabbi Kassin. Chief Rabbi Kassin of Pia Kabbalah used to wear white. And then, I'm telling you, influence of the Ben Ish Chai. Okay? So we showed you, we got rid of the silk tallit. Now we got rid of the colors. Okay? And I'm not saying the derogatory term. I'm showing you the power of certain Hachamim and their writings. Okay? The Ben Ish Chai was supplanted by Yehud Yosef. Okay? Yehud Yosef took over. You don't hear people studying Ben Ish Chai and following Ben Ish Chai. Okay? Yehud Yosef, give it another generation, you'll have somebody else. But that's what's going on nowadays. Okay. Yod Bet. I just want to see if I want to say anything over here. No. Yod Bet. 4 חוטים של הסיסית יתנם בכנף הטלית תוך הנקב כדי שיהיו שם 8 חוטים תלויים מכאן וצריך שיהיה כל חוט מ8 אלו אורכו 12 גודלים ומודדים במקום הרחב שבגודל ומתחילים למדוד אותם משפת הכנף אחר הקשת. אבל כל מה שמונח על הכנף אין למדוד בכלל החשבון של 12 גודלים הנזכרים, ואם ירצה לעשותם יותר מן 12 גודלים, השוב בידו. בדיעבד, אם הם פחות מ12 גודלים, כשרים. וכל שכן, אם היה בהם תחילה שיעור 12, אלא תמנעתו על ידי רחיסה, Basically, he's telling you that the 4 strings of the Sissit, okay, you have to put them into the corner of the Tallet through the hole, okay, and then therefore, once you put it through there, you have 4 on each side, so it's 8, okay, hanging through, as we see. And it goes, and these 8 strings now, their length has to be 12 gudalim. I don't know how much a gudal forms. You want to look up in inches or centimeters what a gudal comes out to? Well, the gudal is thumb size, but what portion of the thumb? I think it's the top portion of the thumb, if I'm not mistaken. But hey, and that's how you count it from the edge of the corner, okay, after the knot, okay. But everything that's onto the knot area, on the corner area rather, you don't measure it. So, and this is what he wants it to be. But b'di'abad, it tells you if it's less than 12 gudalim, it's still kasher. And obviously, if we started off as 12 and then through various washings it shrunk, it's also kasher. You got a measurement on a gudal? Gudal. No. I know, we're gonna move on in a second. Try to find this.
I don't know how accurate this is, but it says 9 inches.
No, that's definitely wrong.
12 ordinary thumb breaths, approximately 9 inches.
Oh, you're talking
I
about the
don't know,
total. Okay, the total, that could make sense. Yes, 12 equaling 9, that could definitely be. I was wondering how much one gudal itself is. So basically what you're telling me is about 3/4 of an inch.
I guess, yeah.
All right, fine,
I mean,
no problem.
it's according to the whatever. It's the Circle K from the whatever. It's a British thing.
That's fine, no problem.
So another site says, yeah. So another one says 11.4 inches, whatever. There's something like that.
Yeah, I just found it. Gudal is 2 centimeters. Okay. So 24 centimeters comes out to how much in inches now, we said?
2.54, I think, is the conversion. So how many did we say total?
24 centimeters, it's 9.449 inches. So what you came up with before 9 inches is approximately, okay,
Okay.
good. All right. So everybody make sure you go home and you measure your Sissit now. הלכה י"ג. אלו השנים 10 גודלים יזהה לעשותן. What?
That's each string after it's folded, once it becomes the 8.
Yeah.
So each one of the strings of the 8 has to be.
אלו השנים 10 גודלים. But he's telling you, even בדיעבד, if it's less than that, it's still kasher. He's telling you, that's what it has to be. אלו השנים 10 גודלים יזהה לעשותם 4 גודלים גדיל ו8 גדולים ענף, אם יוסיף על הגדיל יוסיף גם כן בענף, באופן שדקדק שיהיו הסיסיות שליש גדיל ו2 שלישים ענף, כי יש טעם בזה על פי הסוד. So all of הלכה י"ג is telling you the size according to Kabbalah, and I don't think we need to get into that. י"ד יקשור ראשי כל חוט וחוט של הסיסיות. Okay, and this is something that used to be very, very common, and we don't see it as much nowadays, that the end of each string will make a small knot. Okay? They usually come out by themselves, after a few months. But the end of each string, so you have how many strings altogether? We have 32 strings. We have 32 little knots. Okay? Make sure he tell you to tie it up. And why do you do it? So the strands of each string don't unfray. Okay? That's going to Maharhu. Okay, because he gave to Maharhu, the student of the Ari, gave testimony. That's what the Ari did. So Maharshu said that Maharhu did so, and Maharhu said that Ari did it. Next. Tedvav. Ha'id Rabbeinu Maharhu, al Rabbeinu Ha'ari, Shayan Oheg La'asu B'Tallet Qatan Dafka Shinin Niqabim Simukim Ze Laze, Ke'en Nikudat Sere B'chol Kanaf Ma'al back and forth, והיה מוציא חוטי העסיסיות דרך שני הנקבים התיהם, באופן שיש שני כסבות חוטי העסיסית מתגלים בצד אחד החיסון. This is something that I did see recently, meaning, let's say in the last decade, that on a Tallet Katan, you see, instead of one hole in the corner, you see two holes. Have any of you ever seen it? Give me Tallet for a second. So right now, yeah.
Joe, I believe Chabad, they have the two holes in there.
Right now, you see, Tallet over here has one hole. Okay, I've seen personally in the last decade that you'll see on the certain Talletot, and I didn't pay attention if it was Tallet Gadol, Tallet Katan, but according to what Ben Ish Chai is telling us, Tallet Katan has two holes in each corner.
Joe, I think the Chabad, that's what they do. They have two holes.
Could be. And he's saying that the Ari was scrupulous on the Tallet Katan to have two holes, and therefore when he would have it come through not from one on one side, one other side, he'd rather come both through on one side, and they would both hang on one end. Okay. According, again, the Ari did so, according to the Kabbalah. והיה מוסי חוטי הסיסית דרך שני כנקבים ההם, באופן שיהיו שני כסבות חוטי הסיסית מתגלים בצד אחד החיסון. וסברה זו הביאה בספר האגור, אך רבנו הארי לא היה עושה כן בטלית גדול, אלא רק בטלית קטן. But the Ari did not do it on the Tallet Gadol, on the large Tallet, rather only on the small one. ומהר שו העיד על אביו חיים ביתה שלא היה עושה כן אפילו בטלית קטן. But Maharshu said that his father Maharhu didn't even do it on Tallet Katan. ובוודאי רבנו Maharhu הבין מרבנו הארי שאין דבר זה מעכב. So obviously Maharhu understood from his teacher the Ari that this is not something that needed to be done. ורק רבנו הארי אחר שנהג בהכרח בילדותו כמנהג האשכנזי. See, this is original Ashkenazi custom that the Ari did when he was growing up as an Ashkenazi. And so he never changed that minhag. Lo shinna. Ulchach kam Rabbeinu Maharhu lo shinna minhago. Therefore, Maharhu never changed his own custom of always being a Sephardi and never doing it. ואנחנו מנהגנו לעשות נקב אחד אפילו בטלית קטן. Ben Ish Chai tells us our minhag is to only make one hole even in טלית קטן. ושמעת שגם אצל החסידים בירושלים, because the Ben Ish Chai is saying that he heard that among the Hasidim of Yerushalayim, המנהג פשוט לעשות נקב אחד. The common custom is to only make one hole. Ben b'talit gadol, ben b'talit katan, misitama, kach haya minhago shel Rabbeinu harashash. And whether it's dealing with the large talit or the small talit, only one hole. And most probably this was the minhag of Rabbeinu harashash, bi shalom shar'abi. Okay, almost done here for the night. Halacha tet zayin. It's not proper to leave the Tallet just sitting there without being folded at night. But if you forgot to not fold it and the night passed over it, therefore the following day when he comes to put it on, should shake it out first, as mentioned by the Haronim. גם כתוב באחרונים שכל אדם יקפל טלתו כל יום אחר תפילה בידו. The Aharim also say it's important that each person folds his own tallet, not have somebody else do it for him. Fold it himself after the tefillah. ולא יתננו לשמש לקפלו. Should not give it to the shamash to fold it. לקשה למזל, because we'll say it's not good luck. Okay? גם ייזהר כשיחלוס הטלט בחיר התפילין, יחלוס ביד שמאל. Okay, when you remove the tallet as well as tefillin, you should remove it with the left hand, shehi yad keha, which is your less dominant hand, to indicate that it's difficult for you to remove these mizvot from you. Finally, halacha yod zayin, nachon le'istakel b'sissit ויכוון ויסייר במחשבתו כאילו יש בהם חוט מראה התכלת שהוא דומה לרקיע, מפני דעותיה העירה לא נפסקה כמו שכתב מהרחו וימצא טוב בכוונה זו. It's good to look at the Sissit, and you should at least think to yourself that he's looking at the Techelet. Nowadays we're looking if we could actually see the Techelet, and Techelet makes you think of the rakia, of the firmament, of the sky, and it makes you think closer to Borei Olam, obviously. And this is something that it's an imagery that should stay with you throughout the day. And it's a good kavanah. This is his advice to you in the final halacha of Perashat Noah Shara Rishona. So we got a broad overview of Hilchot Sissit, as well as some ideas and concepts according to the Kabbalah, both Kabbalah of Sod that we didn't understand with the Remazim, and as well as things from the Ari and Maharshu and Maharshu and the Rashash.
What if he has an issue with folding Tallet on Shabbat?
Well, I'm sure we'll get to that when we deal with Shabbat, but we're not up to that yet. Over here doesn't seem to talk about Shabbat whatsoever, and nothing down here, and nothing over here as well. No. All right. Baruch Adonai Le'olam. Amen. Amen. All right, everybody. Any questions?
No mention on having not folding on the lines and all these things that people say.
No, that would be a Shabbat issue, and obviously
Kippur, wouldn't it be Kippur also?
Right, but right now he's only talking about daily. He's not dealing with holidays. He's not dealing with Shabbatot. So
Okay.
I'm sure in the future we'll get to that. And if we don't get to it in the Ben Ish Chai, then we'll get to it elsewhere.
Hazak Baruch.
Thank you very much. Now, what question was I looking up for somebody to write about? Joey Bitesh?
Close it? No,
Yeah, do what you have to.
beforehand.
The salt on the table.
Sure, okay, I'll send it to you.
After you stop it.
Okay.
All right.